Hi, welcome back to Weatherford Daze. It's Jason and Rachel here, having a nice time on the couch together, talking about subjects that we find infinitely fascinating and all the different connective tissue to our world, to the fiction that we love, how we feel about our faith and our connection to it and our spirit. Now, if you know me in real life, you would know this is a subject that I know way too much about and really enjoy. But I think that there's some deeper elements in this if we look, and they talk that it kind of shows us who we are as people and how we function in society. It's more than just four color heroes on the page. What are you talking about, Jason? Talking about superheroes. You can't throw a rock without hitting something about superheroes. There was two movies came out in this month alone. These are multi-billion-dollar franchises in the comic books. But when I was growing up, they were four color heroes in a comic book, and you flip through them. You'd be on your bed just reading about the latest adventures of these heroes, and you were having fun with it. But as I grew up, I thought more about the deeper elements that are in these books and how they reflect us. So are they a mirror for our society in our humanity, in our morality? That's the question.
You know, I love the fact that you have been the reason why our kids have also grown up watching superhero movies and really enjoyed that, because that's something that I didn't really grow up watching superhero movies. I think that as all of the Marvel movies and stuff came out, and I I was a teen during what was the TV series
Smallville.
Smallville.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I watched that, and then the Marvel movie ones and stuff, but it wasn't really something that was a really big part of my childhood, but it has been a part of our kids' childhood.
And to give you
And
one quick point,
Mhm.
the first superhero movies that may have come earlier would be like the first Superman was 1978, and Batman was 89. But you're talking about the newer Marvel movies.
You know
That
what?
was after
I
2002. We got
actually
married in 2004.
the reason why I had ever watched the original Superman movies
Oh, with Christopher
was
Reeve.
right with Christopher Reeve. I
He's
hadn't
the
even
best.
watched those until I was like probably only a couple of years before we met. So late teens. And that was because there was a friend, my best friend had a guy friend that loved those movies, was a complete geek. And so he was like, "You haven't watched these, you have to watch these." So we watched those all together. So, uh,
I as a side note, I know she's going to continue on, but as a side note, one is great, two is pretty good, three, four, it kind of goes downhill from there, and that's a longer
he
story.
was
But
also the reason I watched Bubble Boy, just as an aside.
wow,
'Cause I hadn't heard of that movie before then
oh,
either. But
yeah,
I for me,
hmm
yeah, I enjoyed superhero movies, but why were superheroes such a big deal to you in your childhood? What did they represent?
for me, it was something that was larger than life. That if somebody, so I was not the most popular guy in high school, and I saw people like me who were a little bit, a little more, bookish, or you call them nerdy or whatever. You'd see people get mistreated, or you'd see the bigger person, bigger physically person treating other people, as they were, as if they were less. And I was always attracted to hanging out with the people that nobody wanted to really, they thought they were, you know, weirdos. They were always the ones that they either were into some alternative religions or whatever, and they didn't hurt me any. I hung out with them, or they were people that were bullied. And so when I see this, I see somebody who is using their strength and their power to stop that, not to bully, but to stop bullies.
So you didn't necessarily want to be the superhero, you wanted a superhero.
I kind of would want to be the superhero, but But in some ways, you kind of are tempted by.
See, for me, I just wanted to be a hobbit.
Actually, I want that now. I don't want to be a superhero. I just want to. I just want to go to the Green Dragon and get a big mug of ale. I want to be a pig farmer.
But I think that there
But you
are
didn't think
still,
I bet you think I was going to say that in the superhero episode, did you?
and yet I don't know, because I still feel like there are moments that all of us kind of do have those. It's like when you see something wrong in the world,
Yeah.
when you have those moments, like we were talking about with the Amalas episode,
Right.
when you see something wrong and you go, I just wish that I had the power to fix it, or that somebody had the power to fix it. But
Yeah.
most of the time, it's like, why can't it just be me? Why can't, I'm the one seeing the problem. Why can't I be the one fixing the problem?
And we would think, oh, well, that hero, we would thank them and everything like that. Well, a lot of times in the comic books, superheroes can't do everything. They can't be everywhere. They have to make choices. They have to go, okay, I can go over here and rescue them. And you might say, oh, well, they have super speed. Well, there's always some kind of something again to stop that or to challenge them. And that's what makes it interesting to me. But you have to make those really hard choices.
You know what I love
Yeah.
about superheroes?
Spider-Man choices.
Just as an aside,
Hmm.
like, it's not enough to just have some kind of a power. You also have to have endless creativity and intelligence to be able to utilize your power effectively in whatever situation comes up. If you don't have the training and the ability to adapt and to figure out, it's like, okay, there's this situation here that I haven't faced before. How do I actually use my power in a creative way to actually be able to handle this situation? There's a level
Yes.
of creativity and intelligence and adaptability that is necessary to it.
There's
But
two characters I just thought of. You probably heard of one of them, but one you may not have. One of them is named Firestorm. He's from DC Comics. His ability is to transmute elements and matter and things like that. So he has to think scientifically. Well, what's interesting is he is two people. He is a student and the professor, and when they come together in the superhero. So in the in the in the
so
in the
weird.
hero's mind, he can and it comes in the comic book. He's talking to the professor behind his head. You can see the professor's head floating, and it's saying, if it almost sounds like it feels like Mr. Wizard. It feels like that show Mr. Wizard, where it's
Like you've got
going
an angel sitting on your
kind
shoulder.
of, except it's just a professor. Probably he doesn't get paid what he probably should get paid, and he's saying things like, you could turn that into chlorine if you do the two different, chlorine gas and knock these guys out. And another
That
character,
sounds like the best way to actually have a superhero, where because you're not just limited to your own experiences and your own ideas. You've got somebody else who's kind of sitting back watching, just brainstorming.
yes. And if you want a character, and honestly, I think that he's actually better. Go figure. I think he's better at doing this than the Marvel version. But there is a DC Comics character named Plastic Man, and he can take almost any form. And I don't see Mister Fantastic from Fantastic Four doing everything that he does. But the things that he does, and the forms that he takes, and the bad humor, of course, that he uses, but he will surprise you at how, if he really set his mind to it, he could be overpowered. And it's only the limitations of, oh, I didn't think of that, and the creativity that that keep him from doing some of the best or worst things ever. And he's a very much overlooked hero, I think. But yeah, you have to be creative. You have to be inventive. You have inventors like Tony Stark or like
Mm.
Bruce Wayne. They use their powers of creativity and technology and money to make all that happen. And we hope that we see a billionaire there that we hope is using their money and their technology and their brains to do something positive, and we don't always see that in the world. And so we it's an idealistic mindset is why we like superheroes, or even a hero that makes a choice like that.
It seems like they kind of come in two categories, though, because
Okay.
you're talking about, the intelligence aspect. You either have a superhero that isn't all that powerful, but they're super intelligent, so they just keep on coming up with new ways to, or like new solutions. Or you've got the superhero that's just so powerful that they don't have to have the creativity or the intelligence. Like, that's always helpful, but they're not the super geniuses. They
Yeah.
just attack it by brute force.
There's always some element of
But that's
intelligence.
how humans, that's the
Peter Parker is really
categories.
smart.
Yeah, but those are the categories that
Yeah.
humans kind of fall into, right? Either we just kind
The
of keep,
brawn
yeah, we
and the
just kind of keep
brains.
chipping away at it and we're just using brute force to get to the root of our problems, or you're really not strong enough to just keep it that. So you have to kind of use the
And
brains
so,
and
sometimes you're the same in the same body at different times. You have the Incredible Hulk, and he is smart, intelligent Bruce Banner, who is subsumed by the savagery
mm.
and the just the id of the Hulk, and he's just
But that was why
unstoppable.
when you had the Hulk that was like the
The
both of
the
them.
Professor Hulk,
Right, the
yeah.
Professor Hope. Why? I think that everybody liked him the most because it's taking and kind of balancing both
I have a
aspects
love
of
hate
that.
relationship with that because that I when I saw it in the movies, I was like, oh yeah, this is the I remember the comic books that I read where he did that, but I also want to see him just let loose
Mm.
and really, because he did that in the comic books too. It's just he did it with intention, and we have yet to see that.
Why do I feel like though, like guys, seems like how men kind of compartmentalize more, and
Oh,
so they're either using brawn or they're using brain, and like having both of those going at the same time is more difficult. But like whereas women are more able to multitask and do the things at the same time.
right.
Like you see those kind of happen too in the superhero stuff where it's like, you've got the way that men function, the way that women function, and it's kind of uniquely, works out in men and women
I think
superheroes
I think
too.
uh, there's an element of wisdom too. Okay, so I was thinking of Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman's got the brawn and she's got the brains. She may not be like the level of a Bruce Wayne or Tony Stark, but that doesn't matter. She brings a wisdom to it that can often temper the judgments of because when someone's really 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 smart, they think they're making the right choice, and she goes, "That's not the best choice." And wisdom and understanding is, I think, what she brings along with her. Even more so than her powers. She has an understanding of things that are just beyond most, and a regal bearing. She's got a lot on her shoulders, being Princess of Themyscira. But anyway, so superheroes are a relatively new thing. I mean, we can look back to they're considered modern myths. We can look back at the old myths, and we look at Achilles, and Achilles had a one weakness. Now, what superhero do we know that has that one weakness? Superman with kryptonite, right? You've got Samson. You've got the true myth, if you know what I mean, and you've got Hercules, of course, who actually is in Marvel Comics.
I love how you took the mythological and like you sandwiched an actual biblical
Actual
guy
biblical
in
guy.
between the two
Well,
myths.
there is a theory that a lot of the mythological characters actually were based off of historical people that had a bunch of other stuff laid on top of them, but I'm not a big fan of that theory. So,
I had never really connected that like Samson really is the superhero of the Bible
and he's not
more
he
than
is
anyone
not he's
else.
not shiny and perfect. He has failings and flaws,
Hmm.
and we find that infinitely not just fascinating but relatable. And those elements, I think, they weren't in some of the earlier superheroes like we had in the 30s, the 40s. They were, they had the idealism, and they're just perfect at everything. But we started treating our heroes like real people, even if they were from another planet. They were real people,
Mhm.
in terms of how we related to them. And so we gave them flaws, we gave them those things, and something that they had to work to get over. We could talk about that shortly with characters like Daredevil. But philosophically, Plato had the idea of the philosopher king, an ideal ruler who leads not for power but from wisdom and virtue. Of course, I mentioned Wonder Woman, but Superman and Captain America would be like a philosopher king, along with King Arthur from the Knights of the Round Table. So you mentioned somebody who uses their brain. Well, I mean, Lex Luthor is all brain, but he's cunning, which is, like, as we mentioned before, I think in another episode, we said it's evil intelligence. Evil intelligence, or intelligence that could be bent for evil or selfish purposes. I consider that word cunning. But we have Nietzsche, who famously said, if God is dead, then all is, I think he said, if God is dead, all is permitted, or he said, God is dead, and we killed him. Right? I can't remember the Nietzschean quote, but it's called the Übermensch. And Übermensch is actually just German for Superman, I believe. And it's someone who lives beyond traditional morals and they create their own values. So somebody who is that powerful or that intelligence, they can change morals and things like that. And that's a very,
So did Nietzsche have the original vigilante concept, like for good or ill, like somebody that's doing it for their own, kind of going out on their own
the
above the law?
well, let's put it this way. That connects into another philosophical element, which is the utilitarianism, which is the greatest amount of good for the greatest amount of people. Well, some people are going to suffer sometimes due to utilitarianism, and you have elements of one of the other elements was the ends justify the means,
Mm.
and that's called consequentialism. It's basically it judges actions based on their outcomes. So because everybody is not committing crimes and everybody's doing what's right, the thing we did, which was, send out police and soldiers and to, force everyone to do right all the time. It's like, do you do that through abject fear? Oh, well, they're doing right. They're doing the right thing. They're being good. Yeah, but we cowed them with fear to do so. So was that right? That I would say that consequentialism is it's not biblical because the ends don't justify the means. Many times what God sees as what you should do, man goes, well, that doesn't make sense. I mean, that's what when Jesus says turn the other cheek, we kind of go, oh yes, he's a man of peace and love. That was not what people wanted to do back then. If a Roman soldier slapped you, oh, you want to slap him back. It was repay for wound.
There's a level in Christianity of going, I trust God enough with having the entirety of the future in his control,
Right.
right? With going that because I trust that he will make sure that whatever outcome happens is correct, I can focus on just going the obedience of doing life the way that he's told me to do it. And I know that because I trust him, I can do the day to day the right way, the way he's told me to, living in obedience, walking that out, and trust him with the outcome, right?
It brings to mind, yes, it brings to mind like a kingdom sense.
Mm.
Because, not a spidey sense, a kingdom sense, because the greatest in the kingdom is the servant of all. That doesn't make any sense because what you're thinking is the king is the greatest of all and everyone else serves them. But in this case, the king stepped down from his throne to wash your feet, to serve. And it's not that he's worshiping you, he is an object of worship, but he laid down his life. And that doesn't make any sense because we're thinking we're supposed to lay down our lives for the king, for the king, right? But he did it first. He said, "Here's how you do it."
But I think that
It's a kind of a
it
reverse.
is kind of a natural thing for anyone who's going, if we think the ends justifies the means, right? And that's a very natural way to go if you are thinking that I have to make sure that the ends is what that is in my hands.
Right.
But if we're not worried about the ends because we are trusting that God's got that, then we're free to go. The means is what it's all about. That's where we're
Obedience. The
actually
means
where
is
we're
in the
right,
obedience.
where we're making sure that everything that we do is just, is righteous. Then and we go, I'm not worried about whether this outcome is going to be what I have to do, because I can trust in the omnipotent God, the omniscient God, to know that He has told me to do what's right. And if I do what's right, then it will all come out all right in the end. Like, that is really where we don't have to worry about it and go, well, the ends justify the means, because we're trying so hard to control. It's about control.
Yes, and what you're trying to do is you see injustice and you're trying to twist and say, well, instead of this injustice happening, and you're saying it's in God's hands. Oh no, no, it's in my hands. And that's where we come to when we talk about differing viewpoints with these superheroes. You've got the question of vengeance versus justice. And when you think about vengeance, do you think about Batman? Maybe, but there's a restraint with Batman. I think early on, and some people maybe don't know this, but back in the 30s, he would pick up a gun and shoot a bad guy, or chuck somebody into some acid. He would do it, but I mean that kind of reflected that gritty gangland warfare kind of feel of the 30s. The cops would be willing to shoot people down and whatever. But as Batman went on, he had this sense of restraint where he wouldn't kill. I think that's
Didn't they
something.
make it where he wouldn't use
He
guns?
wouldn't
He
use.
wouldn't use guns
Yeah.
because his parents were shot?
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct. So, but that developed as they kind of started working out how his parents were killed and who did it. Those kind of and the mythology kind of developed over time, but it kind of became solidified at some point with
They gave him
the
a
no kill
personal
rule.
morality too
They
that he
did,
didn't
and
have
there's a
other people.
restraint. That what I'm trying to say is there's a restraint.
Hmm.
And then but there's another character that actually has been seen a lot around on the Marvel side, and that's the Punisher. He also with guns, had his family taken from him. But his answer he was not a billionaire who had he was a former military. And his thing was, I know how to kill. And my family was not supposed to die. They had their lives taken from them. So what I'm going to do is take the lives of those who deserve it. And those who deserve it are those who are killers, who are murderers and things like that. But he represents that shell-shocked veteran making those choices. And he's not anybody you should try to emulate. But there's a sense of honor with him that he struggles with that. He doesn't just go, I'm going to kill everybody, but he's got his issues. And the thing is, though, there are those two sides of that coin. Is without restraint, you have a character that kind of started out almost like a villain. And do you take them down, or do you kind of let them face their own sense of morality and go, you know, what you're doing, it needs restraint. It needs a channel. It doesn't. You can't just be that. But that's because the vengeance is in the hands of God, and we have to, as Christians, let that be in God's hands. And we can't just be a vigilante in today's world, because, like in Romans 12, it says that you are to put yourself under the government that you're in, and you have to respect those in authority. I think that there are limitations with that. If authority tries to tell you you can't worship God, then that's another thing. But you have to respect that there are those who have been chosen to bring justice, to follow the law, and we all hope that they would, but they need to they also need to be restrained many times from going overboard. So these are all things that we think about in today's world, and these comic book characters are ways that we can work those things out and ask those philosophical questions. So a few years ago, everybody was asking themselves not whether they were on Team Edward or Team Jacob. They were Team Cap or Team Iron Man or Team Steve. I don't know. Team Steve. I don't like the word Team Steve. But the question is, are you a realist like Tony Stark and kind of go, well, there needs to be some structure, some authority over those that are bringing justice and to kind of keep them from getting out of control? Or are you going to side with somebody like Captain America who believes that freedom and liberty is the ultimate? Once you start down that path, you can take away everyone's liberty and take everyone's freedom. I think there's a quote from the movie Civil War, Captain America: Civil War, where he says, "The best hands are our own. It's up to us to make those decisions because a country could come in and say, well, we want you to go take these people out because they're bad, and we don't agree. What happens
Who
if
said that?
that was Captain America said that? Yeah,
Okay.
because he was saying, yes, if we need to be under. I agree that authority is good to an extent, but authority is ruled by men as well, and they can make the decision that, hey, you need to go get involved with this war, and we're like, no, why should we do that? We don't agree, and so that's where they have to make their own decision. But I go back and forth about it. I think spiritually, I agree with Captain America in some ways, but I do think that you have to have a guiding hand. But that guiding hand needs to be not led by selfishness.
Well, I think isn't the difference not so much having a guiding hand, because I think that Captain America was fine with having a guiding hand. It's about whether that guiding hand is if you understand where they're going and you've bought in, or if it's kind of been forced upon you, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the American way. We want to be brought along, we want to understand, we want to because we believe in governments governance by the people for the people, right?
Mhm.
It's we want to have a voice, we want to have that understanding, we want to know why we're doing what we're doing. So that would be, we're fine with having a guiding hand as long as that guiding hand is explaining to us, is getting our buy-in.
And when Captain America, of course, was a soldier before, so he knows what it's like for a general to say, "We need to go in here and do this particular thing." So, and soldiers infamously are not supposed to question their orders,
Mhm.
and they consider that a dereliction of duty or something like that. But the
But
thing
there's the
is,
level
yeah,
of in and I mean, I know that there's the draft sometimes, but for the most part, the soldiers are there because they signed up, because they believe that the overarching mission is good and they support it. And it's always better to have your soldiers that are voluntarily there because they believe in what they're doing than have people that were forced to be there that don't want to be there. Because if you have soldiers that don't want to be there, they're going to leave the first chance they get, right?
or they're not going to be all in. And there's the
Right.
buy. You want the buy-in, and I think
Mhm.
that's what the Avengers in the movie. I think what they wanted was to have that buy-in, to
Mhm.
to really go, okay, you know, we're not just mindless soldiers that you just go, hey, person B, go over there. No, this is Captain America. This is Iron Man. This is Black Widow. This is not just soldier A, soldier B. Let me move these pieces around on a chessboard. And I think that in the universe of this movie, they had some right of doing pushback, because if you remember, in the previous movie, they found out that this pseudo-Nazi organization had its tentacles in the American government. So how much was still left over? How much is are they being influenced by those deeper? I was about to say deep state, but we don't want to use that phrase too much. It's a little too overused now. But there was a corruption there,
Mhm.
and and that there is that chance for government to be corrupt. And I was thinking about, well, you have the Avengers, and they kind of listen to the government a little bit, but the Justice League, they are their own thing, and the government can sometimes be afraid of them. The Justice League is Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman and them, the Flash and people like that. Superman's going to do what he feels is right, no matter what, and he's going to might catch some flack for it. But what are you going to do? You can't stop him. You can just make friends. I guess. Make friends with him, I guess.
I feel like there's a balance
Mm.
that's needed with the buy-in. You have to have a level of trust in other people, because if you have too many people that are kind of have the philosophy of I'm going to only do what I absolutely believe in, and if I stop believing in it, then I'll turn my back on you and start working against you. And that's you want to have people that you can trust, that even if they don't understand every bit of it. It's kind of, I don't know, I think of child rearing with that. And I
Okay. Do
because
tell.
okay, there is my philosophy with parenting is very much I want my children to understand why I'm asking them to do what I'm asking them to do, right? I am always very, very careful to explain when they ask why, if I can. But then there's those times when it's like, I can't tell you why right now. It's taking too long, or it's a matter of, if you don't obey right now, you will get hurt, right?
You have
It's
to trust me.
so there's the level of if you have a child that has always heard, has always been indulged with being answered every time they ask why, that before they will obey, they have to have an answer and an understanding. You have to be able to have both. There needs to be sometimes, and you may have to practice it before it's actually necessary with your children, right? Of being able to go, okay, I'm willing to explain to you, but first you obey, then I will explain. And we're doing this because there's going to be times when I need you to obey first. You
Right.
have to be able to trust that even when you don't understand why I'm telling you to do something, that I'm telling you to do it and you can do it because you trust me. And then after they do it, actually go, okay, so here's the reason why. And be able to practice those moments. And I don't know if that's because we have the autistic children that always need to know the why behind it,
Right.
why that became even more important, because I feel like there is that level of parenting that just, you just want the obedience all the time. But that is so much more difficult when you add in the the autism. But be that as it may, so it's like we have to actually practice and let them know and explain to them that we're practicing obedience right now, which I don't know that you would necessarily always have to do with every typical child,
Right.
but with ours we did. They had to know that they were practicing obedience before they could practice obedience. But yeah, I think that, regardless of what kind of child you have, you need to have that ability. Your child needs to be able to do what they're told to do when they're told to do it. But you also need to develop the trust, and they need to understand the reasoning behind it, because that's what gives them the tools as an adult. And that's what we're doing, right? We're not just training obedient little, minions. We want to raise adults that can think on their own, that understand why they're doing what they're doing. And so you have to train them how to think through the processes and how to understand why. So there's the balance there. And I feel like, when you have a superhero situation where you have maybe multiple superheroes working together, you're going to have that same thing. You need to have the trust, but you also need to have the understanding. So there's the level of like buy-in, but then trust, being able to go, yeah, I can't explain. There's no time. You just have to trust me and
There
have
was
the
there was
relationship there
that
to
reminds
be
me of
able
the
to do
scene
that.
from Avengers Endgame, where they Captain America is there. They're time traveling. Captain America is there, and Tony Stark is there, and they need to find these stones. And he says, and earlier on, they've had clashes of like the Cap versus Steve, the clash of wills and things like that, and they had some knockdown drag out for real, and they have made their peace with that somewhat. And he goes, "Do you trust me?" And he says, "Yes." And so, because he's saying, I know where we can get not only another stone, but more of the tool that we need to make this whole thing happen. I won't go into detail. Watch the movie. But you see them at loggerheads earlier, and then now he just says, "Do you trust me?" He goes, "Yes." I mean, he has the buy-in, and it comes from knowing that other person so well, and knowing that, and also seeing the changes that he's made in his choices. So in the end, that's why we love these characters so much. But I am not sure if heroes could work that well in today's society. Either they would just be servants of the government and almost like, you go do this and you go do that, and they would just go do it. And even if they told them, "I want you to totally kill all these protesters," and he's like, "Okay, it's what are we? Are we just pawns?" But when do we?
I don't think there's ever
Yeah.
been has there been a time in our history that there has been less trust overall in the government? I
Yes.
I feel
Yeah.
like the process of COVID and just the political unrest and stuff has created this, and honestly, I feel like with the rise of social media too, and more people knowing what's going on, there's become less and less of trust on both sides. It doesn't matter where you are politically, you probably don't trust the government right now.
I would say that. Now, heroes can inspire us to do everyday acts of goodness. Recently, I think it's been out for a few weeks. There was a reboot of the Superman franchise, and it came out this month. And people have been putting out little shorts, little videos, and just saying, just they came out of this movie wanting to rescue squirrels, or or help an old lady go across the street. It's just optimism and hope. And you're seeing this character that was raised by probably Methodist, but a farmer and his wife in Kansas, raising this young man to be kind. And it almost, the world that Rachel's talking about mistrust and conspiracies and paranoia, that is what we want to rebel
It's not
against.
sustainable for people to live like that, I feel
And
like.
and in the movie, they mention a term. Everybody's been hashtagging this around. It's that kindness is the new punk rock. Is that punk rock was a rebelling against the government and everybody telling you what to do. But the thing is, though, it came back to, can you just be kind and nice to the next person? And the thing is, what if that is what people are gravitating towards? That's Christ likeness. Now, I don't believe that Jesus was nice. I believe he was kind. I watched a whole video on what is niceness. Niceness would be never to call anybody out on what they're doing or their sin. But Jesus wanted you to step up and step into that, the righteousness, and to seek after that. And not just show kindness and love to others, but also to go, "Hey, I've got this in myself that I need to work on. I have thoughts that I have to bring into captivity. I have a heart problem. I have a heart issue. And if you're going to be nice, you're not going to touch that at all. You're just going to be surface level and help someone across the street. Oh, that's great. But there's a deeper thing that Jesus always would bring in. He would always get to the heart of the matter. He would cut to the quick. He would get to the word is a sword, and it rightly divides joint and marrow. It cuts to the heart of the situation. So why wouldn't Jesus say those things that sometimes are a little hard to hear? But we always think of Jesus as loving at the same time. So it's not just about being kind and rescuing a squirrel. There's some things you can do where you can call something what it is and just say, you need help. And not just
It's
across,
about motivation, is what you're saying. Like nice is
Yeah.
more about, it's about a selfish motivation because it's caring about how you're perceived
Yes.
more than about what actually is the best for the other person. If what's best for the other person is
But that's
not,
seen as judgmental, though. And Jesus was
but you,
judgmental.
yeah,
He's the great judge.
but it's not kind to allow someone to do something that's hurting themselves if you
Or
have
others.
the ability to shine a light on that or to change their mind. And there's some wisdom that's necessary in there because you may not have the relationship with that person that they'll listen to you. So,
And honestly, like I said, Jesus was the one to look to. And when he says something that is righteous and holy and just, I don't always think that I can do that or be that excellent at that.
hmm,
So you give that over. Sometimes you have to give, like you said, you have to release yourself from and say, God's got the end.
mhm.
He's got that. So the means is the obedience. So what I do in the moment is yes. I say, I think the term, I'm not going to use the term rescue a squirrel anymore. But I was saying, yeah, rescue that squirrel. No, love somebody, help them, show them the love of God, and then let God, if God gives you the words to speak and gives you the avenue into their life to speak into that, yes. But that's the part that you really need to lay on the altar and go, God, you really, you need to, because we can so often with our own tongue, we can say the wrong thing or come into a situation wrong. It's a lot easier to, like I said, help somebody across the street. There's nothing really that's nice, but there's nothing really kind, nothing really earth shattering about that. But when you speak the truth of God and righteousness in that, it can be taken about a wrong way. But you have to kind of go, God, lead me. Don't let me just go off, at the mouth. I need to speak your words. And you're going to have to humble yourself and really, you have to trust God and sometimes say nothing. To quote Justin Bashir's from this Sunday, sometimes just don't say anything. Just be. And sometimes you have to go, God, I'm giving this over to you. You're the just one, and you'll do right by the situation. So we don't have a Superman or a Batman that's going to come swoop in and save us in a situation. We have to realize that we live in a fallen world, but we have a righteous judge. We have a holy God, and we have to go, God, you got this, and you tell me what I need to do, and I place my life in your hands. I'll serve you so I can serve others. A hero. What is a hero? But someone who sacrifices, and you have to lay down your life for others, and there's no greater love than that. Okay. Oh. Okay. So before we end this episode or session or whatever this session sounds
Session.
session.
We're not
Okay.
having therapy, are we?
Therapy, right? Well, it kind of is for me in some ways. Okay. So if you could have one power, and I don't know what her answer is going to be. You could have one power, what would it be? If you were made a superhero tomorrow, what power would you want and why?
I would think you would know that. I'm sorry.
Is it flight or healing or no?
Healing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What kind of healing though? So would it be just of the body, like wounds and broken bones.
Body and mind. I mean, yeah, just personally from a what we need standpoint. If I had the ability, if I had any ability, I would want the ability to heal our son.
Lay on hands,
And
to use the term. Yeah.
I know that that does get controversial in the autism community
Yeah.
because, well, let me put it this way. If our son had the ability to say, I like the way I am and I don't need healed, then, and that's a lot of people with autism have that ability to say that. Our son is not at the level where he can. And I would love even to just be able to give him that much comprehension to be able to even understand that question. If he could understand that question, if I could heal him to that point that he could choose and understand the choice, like, you know, uh, that's why it's controversial because the parents that are saying I want to heal my child are talking about the children with that level of autism, not the level where they actually have enough awareness and understanding to be able to say, I like myself the way that I am. I would love it if my son was at that point. So,
I have not thought super deeply about this. I go back and forth about things. While you were saying that, I was like, wow, whatever I say is going to sound really lame compared to that. And I was thinking, okay, so super strength. Oh, well, there's got to be a downside to it. I would shake someone's hand and then just break their arm. Okay, invulnerability. Well, I wouldn't, I would, I don't know. For me, I would first think super strength so that if somebody was stuck in a car and couldn't get out, I could pull the doors off of it and get them out. But I'm not certain that I wouldn't be metaphorically beating myself up because I can't be everywhere at once and I can't help everybody that needs help. And so you think of super speed. So I'm not certain you'll be able to
see,
zip in, zip out, and
I don't
save the
think
day.
that I would choose super speed as more than the ability to just transport.
Oh, like a teleportation kind
Yeah,
of thing.
teleportation would be, to me, would
You
be
got to be
better than super
careful
speed.
because you'd get stuck in a wall or something if you got to be careful with that. But that's a possibility. I believe that you don't need a cape to be a hero, and all you need is the will to act and conscience. And I think those are two big things, and that can make a hero no matter what. But I'd like to thank you for joining us tonight. I hope I don't want to say something cheesy like I hope your weekend is super or something like that, but you are a hero to somebody else. You just don't know it. I think that as long as we can use these questions about these superheroes to kind of make us think a little bit deeper about weightier issues, then they don't just become something fluffy. Because I think they're fluffy and fun. That's fine. But when they help us think about these deeper issues, I think that they can cause us to get some kind of level of complexity out of it. And I think that if you can do that, then they kind of graduate from fluffy and silly to something more interesting, at least to me.